Thank you all very much. The next 20 minutes I would like to steer your curiosity towards a broader notion of nature. Basically that's what I want to talk about. And I would like to start by zooming out a little bit and looking at the planet that we live on. If we take the perspective of an astronaut or maybe even an alien, what do we see? Thousands of years ago, this planet would be pitch black, all dark. Now we see all these glowing dots on the planet. So what's happening? Is the planet on fire? Is it spring? Are we blossoming? It's an open question. We don't know. But if we zoom in, we can maybe discover a few things. So, what can we see? The difference between the blue and the red states. We see the emerging of new economies in countries like India. We see Europe lighting up like some Christmas tree with a very bright star in the east. There's also some dark areas like Greenland. Amazon rainforest is larger than you might expect. We see also other natural structures like the Sahara Desert, but also the Nile River that lights up because of all the cultural activity around that natural structure. In East Asia we see mega cities like Beijing and Shanghai, but we also see economic and political decision making. We see North Korean, or the border between North and South Korea. It's a pretty different situation in Seoul than it is in Pyongyang. We can all see that from space. Now you can question yourself, what would be the most light spot on Earth? Where would that be? And the answer might be closer to home than you think. In the triangle Amsterdam, Brussels and Cologne, it's one of the most dense populated area in the world. We don't realize that. We still think of we're the Netherlands, we're a small country. Actually we live in one of the biggest mega cities in the world. If you see it as one kind of structure, this is glowing light bulb there. Today we are here, and this is also a perspective that we have to look from. But I want to once again take a step back, also step back in time and look at where we are. Our planet 5 billion years ago was just this floating rock floating around in the universe. It was a geosphere, rock with a fluid core of hot lava, and it took 3 billion years before the biosphere grew on that geosphere. And it took another billion years for humans to enter the picture. And with our human ingenuity, we created this other layer on top of that biosphere. We could say that's the technosphere, the sphere of all human technology and human ingenuity. Now, it would be a bit arrogant to say that this technosphere and also our position in it has reached some endpoint in evolution. I think that's not true, because our natural environment, we have replaced it for a very large deal by technology. The technological environment becomes so complex and intricate that we start to relate to it as a nature of its own. You could ask yourself, do we even still have authentic natural experiences of nature, or is it just some recreational activity that we enjoy in the weekends. Well, I think that our notion of nature should be reconsidered, and I see some ugly faces here, and mind you, this is Photoshop, it's not real. It's made by an artist, Julie Rapp, but I think metaphorically, this image has some truth in it. We live in a time where the born and the made are fusing, and I think it's also safe to say that evolution will go on, and that humans also will be some catalyst of this evolution. So we think that our technosphere becomes our next nature, and this next nature has to be cultivated and domesticated just like we did with the old nature. You could say we should balance that biosphere and the technosphere a bit better than we do. And in doing so, we have to save the humans. And with Next Nature Network, we explore this next nature through design. That's our language. You can work with that. And it's also a language that kind of steers our curiosity into that next nature. So we do all kind of projects. We give a lot of talks and organize events. We organize our own conceptual tools. We do exhibitions. I want to highlight one project before I go into this other proposition that you already hinted on. It's this project, Meet the Future, and it's an exploration of lab-grown meat, or in vitro meat, if you want. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's it's a niche industry that the Netherlands are currently pretty advanced in, and scientists at Maastricht University, they're pushing this idea to take cells from an animal, put them into a controlled environment in a laboratory, let the cells grow into little meat fibers, and then they train those fibers with electrical pulses so that they stretch and contract and relax. Well, the same thing happens when you go to the gym. The muscles grow. If you repeat those steps 20,000 times, you get enough muscle fiber to put them all together in a grinder and make a hamburger. That's the theory, but also is practice. This is how that looks like. It doesn't really look like a juicy steak yet, but this is like the beginning stage of that. This is the end result. If you put this under a microscope, it is really neat. It has exactly the same microscopical texture as like original meat, or meat taken from an animal. It just lacks two things: fat and bones. These are exactly the things that give flavor to meat, if you're into that. It's crazy expensive because it's all manual labor. It's not something high tech. It's really like lab assistants with little tweezers putting all that stuff together. The research is currently funded by Sergey Brin, one of the founders of Google, which is, I think, telling that somebody from information technology giant funds this biotech research. And the first lab-grown hamburger was presented some years ago already in front of an audience of journalists and got a lot of press coverage. And well, you could say, on one hand, it's very interesting that we're looking for alternatives for the meat that we have, for many reasons. Environmental issues, animal welfare. I think it's good that we look for alternatives. But creatively, or even from a design perspective, you could say, it's not so very creative. Making a hamburger from lab-grown meat is a bit of a horseless carriage. Like the first cars, they also look like carriages, but then without a horse in front of it. Maybe that's the same for this hamburger. So shouldn't we be a little bit more creative? Well, that's what we did with the Next Nature Network, with a team of researchers and chefs and photographers. We set out to create recipes that all point to a possible future with this in vitro meat. And also made an exhibition out of all the scenarios in the Cube Design Museum. It was a little bit like a lab slash restaurant. And then we produced a cookbook out of all the recipes. It's a cookbook you cannot cook from. It has 45 recipes that you can't cook yet. Maybe one day when you have the missing ingredient. But I don't think that's a problem. I have a lot of cookbooks myself. I never use them. when I cook, I look something up on the internet, but my cookbooks, they serve as a inspiration for possible food culture. So that's so when we use the language of the cookbook to do this design research, and I'll show you a few of the recipes. First application could be getting all these meat fibers, making threads out of them. If you have threads, you can also start knitting meat. It won't look like this, but the idea is that the aesthetic of this meat will not be linked to an animal anymore, but to a production technology. So it's kind of a modernist idea that the production technology establishes the aesthetic. Or we have to completely deconstruct the notion of what is meat actually. We can make soup out of it, but maybe also ice cream. Why not? So that would be a bit more postmodernist approach. We have to reinvent the bones because they're not there yet. So maybe use 3D printing. The same technology could apply to maybe reconnect this very new technology with very old traditions and notions, like your grandmother's vegetable soup, this 3D printed marrow bone, put it together with vegetables, and you have a very old-fashioned broth. Then we make a connection between, say, the highly technological food technology approach of the Unilevers of this world and the nostalgic drive that a lot of people experience, going back to grandmother's kitchen. Or maybe the meat oyster, that makes an interesting combination. You could drink a nice glass of red wine with this meat oyster. But maybe this in vitro meat will become much more authentic than we think. Maybe it will look much closer to the meat we already know. And maybe we have to see it a little bit along the lines of, say, cheese making, or wine making, or beer brewing. Maybe we'll have a small local meat brewing pubs in every city. Who knows? I don't have an answer. It's an open question. So we're looking also for this very highly authentic topic, and we embrace that authenticity, and then we steer our curiosity to look for some kind of new authenticity that we don't know yet. We have to explore that. And I think we could be full circle with this scenario that. My niece a few weeks ago, she asked her mom, like, "Mom, where are sausages made of?" And my mom said, "Well, they're made of pigs." And my niece goes, "Why, Isaac? Yes, but the pigs could die from that." Don't you know? That's a tough conversation you're gonna have with a 4-year-old. But in this scenario, you could go to a petting farm, stroke the pig, cuddle it, extract some cells from it, they won't feel it, take the cells back home, put them in the bioreactor, and in a few weeks you grow enough cells to make this sausage. So I could tell my niece, if she asked me, like, "What's for dinner tonight?" Well, we're having a sausage, yes. It's made from pigs, but tomorrow we go back to the petting zoo to cuddle the pig. And then we not only design a new product, but we design new relations. I think that's also an important notion for designers, that maybe all too often we focus on designing things and objects and products, but maybe you could think of designing better relations. Well, we start with redesigning our relation with nature. That's kind of our topic, but maybe everybody can think for themselves what that should be. And while we're at it, I would like to introduce another topic, and we make a little bit of a stretch, but we stay in vitro, so to speak. I want to do a little experiment with you. Basically, I want to ask you a question. Imagine that you are born again. You were born in a society, and you don't know what gender you will be born. Man, woman, something else. What would you choose? Would you choose to be born in a society where all the risks and burdens, but also the privileges of pregnancy and childbirth are with a female half of society. Or if you would have the choice and the possibility, and this is just a speculation, if those risks and burdens would be distributed more equally between all parents, what would you choose? Who would choose A? I don't believe it. Who would choose B? Everybody? Wow, you're so progressive. You must be Utrecht. I'm asking this because a while ago I came across this article in The Guardian, and it advocated, it pointed to the future of artificial wombs as a technological means to completely disrupt our notion of pregnancy. And I was triggered, not necessarily in a pleasantly way, like, ooh, this is a very complicated scenario we're walking into, if this will happen. And I started doing some research. Again, my curiosity was here stronger than my fear or whatever. And I found out that the technical term for this is ectogenesis. Ecto meaning outside, genesis meaning birth. Birth outside of an organism. And this term was coined already early 20th century by a biologist. And also the first artificial womb has already been patented in 1955. Whoa, this is a whole new world for me. What is it? There has been a lot of research into it already. One hand, you have a tank with amniotic fluid where a fetus floats inside. Just like a natural womb. Nutrition has to go in, oxygen has to go in, waste material has to go out, and there has to be some kind of interface to control all this. I feel that there are some interface designers in the room. Well, it's kind of a design question, if you want. But what does it mean conceptually? One way to look at this is to maybe also look at already existing technologies like contraceptives. They earlier on disconnected sex from reproduction, and this technology has the potential to disconnect the body from reproduction. Now, if that's a scenario that's desirable, I don't know, but this is the potential of that technology. And of course, you run into a moral minefield if this will ever happen. There's so many questions, like why would we further instrumentalize our body? But also, on the other hand, it opens up a new debate on gender issues, equality issues. And in the 70s, there has already been some thoughts on this from a very radical feminist side, from Schumann Firestone. She basically said, like, well, pregnancy, that's something barbaric. It might be natural, but it's not human. And we should get rid of that. If we want to live in a more equal world, we have to solve that. Open question. If you look at the world of imagination around this topic, of course we have basically only very dark scenarios, from science fiction novels, Brave New World, The Matrix, humans as batteries. This is very dark imagery. And on the other side, it's very difficult to imagine some kind of more utopian vision with it. We lack those images, we don't have them. So we start somewhere, and that's also where our research started. So we started looking at, for instance, in mythology from ancient India, a story about a princess that had miscarriages. The fetus falls on the ground into pieces, and all the pieces are put in jars of butter, and out of those jars grow princes. It's a very old story. It's the oldest story I found that kind of points to birth outside the human body. What can we learn from it? Not sure yet. But also in closer to home in Europe, there has been all kind of attempts to grow people in bottles, infant incubators, of course. We have seen the advent of reproductive technology, contraceptives. We control our hormonal cycles, often designed by men for women. That's also kind of an issue. in vitro fertilization. The first test tube baby, Louise Brown, turns 40 this year. After her, over 5 million babies have been put on Earth through this technology. So we're already kind of into this process of technologizing our reproduction. We've seen the first male and transgender pregnancies, and for quite some while this was the state of the art in reproductive technologies. A goat kept in a tank for a few months in Japan in the 90s. This was kind of the peak where that research ended until last year. End of April, this movie was put on the internet and it went viral in 1 week. And a lot of people saw this. I don't know if you've seen it. What we see here is a baby lamb, lamb fetus in some kind of plastic bag connected to basically all the stuff that I just explained. So basically we're looking here at a prototype of an artificial uterus. Now, people went wild over this on the internet. Like roughly half of the people said, this is awful. We should never, let's close this door, let's leave it there. Other half said, well, it's quite beautiful. We see a very vulnerable being here. It's connected to technology, but it also shows how technology can be something very vital and can support life and extend it. But then, of course, the scientists who work on this, they kind of take a step back, they take this neutral position, and they like, this will never be put into use for humans. This is not how it will work. Yeah, for me that's a bit of a problematic standpoint. I understand it, but I think if you already put this on the table, if you can imagine it, you can make it. So I think we should better imagine it in a good way, rather than just saying like, it won't happen. So I think that's kind of a problematic thing that we're dealing with, and also the cultural perspective I think here lacks. So we need artists and designers to also relate to this issue. Basically the question comes down to who will design our reproductive futures. So that's also a design question. I think we should also have like a public debate on this, starting right now, because who knows where we are in 5 years. Technology can develop very fast. Of course, there's a lot of law making in between. It won't happen overnight. But I think we need a public debate on this topic. But how to design such technologies? I don't have an answer, but I can introduce a way of looking at technology that might be of help. And I want to introduce the pyramid of technology that envisions how technology becomes nature in 7 steps. I'll rush a little bit through it. On the first level we see technology that is envisioned, that only exists as an idea or as an image. And in the 50s this was satellites. In the 60s these satellites became operational. First envisioned through science fiction writers, but then they became operational. Just like we now have in vitro meat or this prototype of an artificial womb. This is just, technology exists but only in a laboratory or as a prototype. On the next level, technology becomes applied, like solar panels, but also nuclear energy, genetic modification. It's there, we do it, but it's not, we haven't fully embraced it as society. For that to happen, technology needs to be accepted. For instance, our smartphones is something that they were introduced less than 10 years ago in life, and now everybody's like swiping and walking on the street. It's become so easily accepted in society that we don't really question it anymore. On the higher levels of acceptance, we find technologies that become vital in the sense that they support vital life functions, such as sewage. But also when there are also technologies when we would remove them, they would cause a crisis. So maybe the same goes for the internet, and you can think for yourself, what would you rather live without? Sewage, Wi-Fi. I I think it's a tough one. But also, in this realm of reproductive technologies, baby incubators, when they were introduced, they were like shown as in a fancy fair in New York as kind of exotic. But now, of course, when you have a premature baby, you want that technology to be there, right? You want that. At the next level, we see that technology becomes invisible. Not that it disappears, but we don't really see it anymore as technology. Take, for instance, clothing or handwriting. I need to put your thoughts into abstract science that you can reproduce with your hands in the sand. They're technologies that support us, but they're not really, like there's no buttons and wires involved. Maybe the same goes for IVF as a technology. Now, what's at the top of this pyramid, and I'm reaching an end here, we would say that technology becomes naturalized, and maybe this only happens for a handful of technologies. This is kind of a nirvana state you would never reach, but maybe some technologies are there, like cooking. Maybe not these pots and pans, but the process of outsourcing the digestion of food to technology, so not in your stomach but to technology, that has already shaped our physical bodies as human. It has already happened. So it's an example of how technology is not only just a neutral tool, but also shapes ourselves back. The same could go for agriculture and turning our environment into a production landscape, and the concept of time, our clocks to kind of measure experienced time. So there are technologies that are really kind of high level. They have nothing to do with buttons and wires, but they really structure how we live, but also our physical bodies. And why I think this is important, that if we don't have a holistic idea of what technology is, or what the role of technology is in our life, we are stuck with these clunky definitions. And clunky definitions lead to clunky ideas, and make that we settle for weak derivatives of our dream. And let me give you two examples. First example, being able to fly like a bird. Who has ever had that dream? I had it as a child. I always had beautiful dreams. But the closest that I get to this dream is when I'm stuck at the airport waiting for my luggage. Yeah, fantastic that I can fly everywhere, but it's still a very weak derivative of that dream, right? Another example would be telepathy. The idea to communicate just with brainwaves. That's kind of a dream scenario. We would never have any misunderstandings anymore. We just directly communicate. But the closest that we can get to this technology is looking at our smartphones and then reducing our interhuman communication to this little text message that we send. Fantastic that we have these devices, but very weak derivatives of our dreams. So I think what we should do is to aim higher in the pyramid to realize our technological potential much higher, be way more ambitious as a species here on Earth. And I think that in the end, truly advanced technology becomes part of our human nature, that also maybe transforms our human nature. So it might very well be that the future of our reproduction is not so much outside our bodies, but it's inside our bodies, and it will also change our bodies. Will we become like seahorses, this kind of gender-neutral species that can reproduce themselves indeed without having sex with another partner? Will we become like kangaroos that carry their fetuses in their pouch? Will we become birds that lay eggs, but in a more like human technologized version of it? I don't know. I don't have the answer. I just have this question. The only thing I know is that we have to do it here with us. We don't have 3 planets. We have only one. It's our planet, and we have to deal with that. And we have to solve all these issues right here, right now. Thank you very much.